Jeneanne, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January of this year, 2016. At my diagnosis, I was 39, and a few months later, I turned 40. As you can see, I like to wear hats, but I also just like to go natural. It was through a breast self-exam. I felt a lump, and I am diligent about doing my monthly breast self-exam. I was well aware of how important that was, in addition to regular clinical self-exams. But it was actually just through a monthly breast self-exam I felt a lump. I remember going into work and telling some of my coworkers, I think I need to schedule an appointment with my doctor because I felt a lump, and they were like, oh yeah, do it right away. And I was like, cross my fingers, we have good insurance. and so I called my doctor, my primary physician, and made an appointment with her. And she also could feel something, and right away she ordered a diagnostic mammogram and ultrasound. And from there, the radiologist, he asked me to return for a biopsy the next day. So I saw my doctor, and like a week later had the appointment for the mammogram and ultrasound. And because it was diagnostic, I think that's why the radiologist was looking at it that day and said, yeah, we definitely see something that we will need to do a biopsy to confirm. Yeah, and then a day after the biopsy, the day after I returned and after work and got the results. So thanks to Susan G. Komen and my involvement with Race for the Cure and the Breast Cancer 3-Day in San Diego, where I used to live, I knew a lot about breast cancer. Or I should say I thought I knew a lot about breast cancer. In my diagnosis, I realized how much I didn't know about breast cancer. I wasn't aware that there were so many different types, and just the different treatments available depending on the different types of cancer. So when I was diagnosed, they let me know that I had the lump that I felt was the primary tumor site. And that type of cancer was called triple negative. And then they also found that I had a small tumor that we couldn't feel, and that was very small, but that type of cancer is called HER2/neu. So, yeah, and there are targeted medications for HER2/neu, new ones coming up all the time, but I'm currently getting one of the newer medications for that one. I do have a family history of breast cancer. So my mother and my maternal grandmother, as well as my mother's sister, have had breast cancer. Also on my father's side, my grandmother and my father's sister, so an aunt on that side of the family. And we have other, I guess it would be my mom's aunts as well. So yeah, there's a strong family history of breast cancer. So I mean, that's through having relatives with breast cancer. I know about breast cancer through their experiences. And then that's kind of why I decided to get involved with some of the walks and Race for the Cure in San Diego. Probably, I think 2004 was the first time that I did a 3-day walk. Yeah. I did seek out information independently after receiving my diagnosis. However, the nurse navigator that I had at St. Mark's, where I was diagnosed, her name is Lori, and she's wonderful. And she provided me with a binder that had a lot of information, very well organized, and I think she shared with me that they now have it in kind of like a booklet. But that actually was a really great starting point and provided, specific information for the types of cancer, breast cancers that I had, and different treatment options with pictures, so that you can understand. So the type of breast cancer, I don't know if I said it was invasive ductal carcinoma. So which means that it's invasive is that it spreads, and ductal, it's in the milk ducts. So that was the type. But then I guess a further categorizing of it would be the triple negative, which that just means that the hormone receptors, that I'm negative for that. So when women are positive with those hormone receptors, they can get targeted treatments for that. But my main one was a triple negative. And then the other tumor is HER2/neu positive. So that one is able to receive the targeted hormone therapy for HER2/neu. Initially, I was staged at a 2B. So my doctor just said that they wouldn't be able to confirm it until they actually removed the tumors and the pathologist was able to look at that. But as part of the diagnostic process, when I had a PET scan, that revealed that there were lymph nodes involved on my right, like near my right collarbone. So since my breast cancer is in my left breast, and that is on the opposite side, that moved the staging from 2B to 4. And we also discovered during the biopsy that there were a couple of lymph nodes involved under my armpit on the left side. But I think had the lymph nodes only been involved on the left side, it would have either stayed at a 2B or maybe been a 3. But with it being on the other side as well in lymph nodes, it's a stage 4. So I didn't share that I was going to have this lump checked out with my family because I wanted to just be sure that it was breast cancer before I called my relatives, my family members up. I'm a single mom, and so I have 2 wonderful children, and I did bring them with me, actually, and I kind of talked to them that I was getting some tests to see. They know that my mom had breast cancer and that my grandmothers both had breast cancer, and so we had talked about what that means. But yeah, they came with me, and as the radiologist shared the news, he said from the biopsy we can see that they are positive for cancer, and I said okay, and I think because of the family history, I was expecting it to be cancer. So as far as how my family reacted, I mean, my children were just there with me, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And then as I talked with the radiologist and nurse, the children went to another room and watched a show on TV or something. So I could speak with them a little bit more about what the next steps were and just get more information. I think because of my own reaction and just how I've handled my diagnosis, that my children have been able to not be afraid of what the diagnosis is, and what cancer means. I was able to actually, I'm getting my care through Huntsman, and it's been wonderful to be there. One of the things that one of the social workers mentioned to me was that I could bring the children in for a tour so they could see what it is that I do there. So typically children under the age of 14 are not allowed there just because they're trying to control the germs and as much as possible. But we scheduled a tour for them, and basically this social worker was wonderful. She gave them both like dolls that had little hospital gowns on with cute designs. And she had them show, she asked them questions like, do you know where your mommy's cancer is? And if so, here's a pen, and can you mark on your little doll where the cancer is? And then she got out like little syringes that just had no needle, but water, saline or something, and said, okay, so go ahead and, put the medicine in right there. She took them to a room that didn't have a patient in it, but just to show them like what it would look like for a person to be sitting in a chair and having the IV come down, and how that's how the medicine is administered. So, so I think as far as their reaction, they've been informed in an age-appropriate way. For my adult family members, it was difficult, but they've been supportive of me, and that's been really helpful. My brother actually had just finished receiving treatments, chemotherapy, and radiation for a rare form of cancer, not breast cancer. So with his diagnosis the year before, we were all very surprised because the type that he has doesn't run in our family. So I received a binder that had a lot of information on breast cancer, the different types of breast cancer, specifically the type of breast cancer that I had, invasive ductal carcinoma, and then just an explanation of what triple negative meant and what HER2/neu meant. That is the information that I received. It had a lot of information, and I didn't read through all of the tabs, but there were resources to look at as well. I ended up going to my public library and checking out a really good book, and I cannot remember the title of it right now, but that was it was written by an oncologist who specializes in breast cancer, and that was a helpful read. And then I went on the Komen website and, checked out links to other information as well. Okay, so my treatment started with chemotherapy. I'm still undergoing chemotherapy right now. So I'll have had 5 months of chemotherapy for my first round of chemotherapy. And then my second round of chemotherapy actually I just finished my first round on Friday, yesterday. And so, my second round will start next week. But instead of going weekly for weekly infusions, I'll go every 2 weeks, and it'll just be for 2 months. So I think my last scheduled chemotherapy date is August 4th. Yeah, and chemotherapy, it wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. It's been actually, I've been fortunate enough not to have a lot of terrible side effects. Hair loss, but I can deal with that. Yes, no, that's okay. Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to not have a lot of side effects. My obviously hair loss is the most obvious of the side effects, but we can deal with hair loss. I was worried about nausea, and even though they had told me like we have lots of different medications to manage symptoms, especially nausea. I have like 3 different types, 3 different prescriptions at home, but I actually haven't had to use any of them. I've only been nauseous like a few times and vomited just like a few times as well, not even in the beginning. So I think the lack of side effects for me, I know it's different for each person, but I think for me I was so surprised because of the side effects that most of my family members experienced. So chemotherapy is the first step of my treatment. Then I'll have a break for my body to kind of get strong, and then I'll have surgery in the fall, and that will involve a bilateral mastectomy, so both breasts will be removed, and then I will also have my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed. So actually, the decision to have a bilateral mastectomy and to have my fallopian tubes and ovaries removed, that came about through the information we received through genetic testing. So I do have the gene mutation BRCA1, or I don't know how you say it, BRCA. Is that, BRCA1. So it was discovered that I have that gene mutation. So because of the link with breast cancer and ovarian cancer, and my mom actually, she passed away from ovarian cancer after having breast cancer. So with having a family member who, had both breast and ovarian and died of ovarian cancer, and knowing that I have the BRCA1 gene mutation, that made it necessary to have a bilateral mastectomy and removal of the ovaries. I can't pronounce the name of the procedure for removing your ovaries. And I'm still thinking over that part because I might elect to just have a full hysterectomy. So, So I'm still kind of thinking through that one. But I decided with my surgeons, and they thought it was appropriate to wait on that one and to first take care of the mastectomy. My experience has been that with fatigue, usually like 2 days after I get my infusion, I start, 2 things, dehydration and fatigue. I feel dehydrated like Saturday night. I have to usually get up a lot and drink water just all night long because I feel just so thirsty, and throughout Sunday. So kind of just staying hydrated, which they said, that is one of the side effects, and you can just drink a lot of water, or if you need to, you can call in and go in for an infusion, to rehydrate you if it's that bad. So there's that, and once again, I mean, not bad. I'll take that. And then fatigue, if I feel fatigued, it's usually 2 days after. So luckily, since usually I go in for my infusions on Friday or on Thursday when I have to see my oncologist, I go on Thursdays. But the other weeks I go in on Fridays. So luckily, the day that I feel tired is either Saturday or Sunday, a weekend. Yeah. So, which is good because because of the lack of side effects that I've had during chemotherapy, I've been able to continue to work, and that's been wonderful. First of all, I am so glad that I have the primary physician that I had. I didn't even know her very well before I went to her, but she was so good, Dr. Rassner. And she was so good about getting me in for my diagnostics, but also in just following up with me and talking me through things and seeing if I had any questions. So obviously she was a great support. And then I mentioned earlier that a nurse navigator that I met, Lori, was an incredible support in the beginning during the diagnosis stage, because she offered to come with me to my initial appointments to take notes for me. And I was so glad, because I could have called a family member or a friend to do that, but because she's so knowledgeable and it's what she handles, breast cancer, she's a breast cancer nurse navigator. And so because of her experience and knowledge, and then her offering to come with me, I took her up on that offer. And that was wonderful to have her taking the notes, and then she just kind of emailed the notes to me after. And also just for the moral support of having her there. In my visits after my diagnosis, I had my brother come to one of the appointments with my oncologist. So my family has obviously been a support system to me as well. I also found a lot of support through my church family and my neighbors as well, and through my coworkers. And I'm a teacher, so I work at a school, and my students were actually a support to me and their families. So when one of my students' parents found out that I have breast cancer and was going through treatments, she took it upon herself to email all of the rest of the parents of my class and ask them if they would set up a schedule to come and clean up my classroom at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, that they could try and help manage the germs in my classroom, and then also to set up like a meal schedule. So they did that for me for a while, and that was very helpful. They also learned that I was moving and kind of said, "Hey, we're gonna go help Miss Locke out on this certain Saturday that she's moving. Come, with your trucks and your husband." The dads of our students, so we can help her move. So they were an incredible support to me. My coworkers, the other teachers at my school, my principal, they even ordered sweatshirts. And so the sweatshirts on the front, I should have brought it with me, but it says Team Locke on the front. And then on the back, there are wings and it says, kick cancer in the okole. So, as you can imagine, okole in Hawaiian means your rear end. And that was my brother's mantra when he was going through his cancer treatments, was to kick cancer in the okole. And my coworker, my partner, third grade teacher, she thought that was a cool mantra. And our school is a culture-based school, so mainly with the Pacific Island cultures. So our school offers language classes in Hawaiian and Tongan and Samoan, as well as Marshallese, and also Spanish. And so they thought, oh, that's perfect. The mantra on our sweatshirt will have a word in Hawaiian. Yeah. As far as the burdens that a cancer patient goes through or their support system, so what comes kind of at the top of my list is the financial burden of getting care. So I can't imagine how it would be for someone who does not have insurance, because I am fortunate to have very good insurance through my employer. But even with insurance, I think that it's scary to have to meet your deductible and out of pocket, and for each person, depending on their insurance, that amount is different. Or for some, what's not covered by insurance. I know that in my brother's case, he wasn't able to keep working during his treatment. So that whole time period of not having a paycheck, I'm sure that was, a real hardship on his family. So, but for me, even just for me to finish paying the medical bills just from so far this year, it's like a third of my yearly income. And then my insurance will start over again because our work has decided to go with another insurance provider. So within the same year, I'll have to meet that deductible and out of pocket again. So that total just for this year alone is actually like more than my yearly. It's more than half of my yearly income. So that's daunting. But my advice for that financial burden is to go to your hospitals and medical providers and speak to like the financial counselors and see if there are any charity applications that you can sometimes have some bills. They can be waived and covered by the facility or that doctor's office. So to apply for that, and then also then to go and set up payment plans so that instead of this huge, large, amount, you can see, kind of get it into a manageable payment plan. So I've just like gone around and just made a bunch of payment plans in all the different places, and that's kind of how I'm handling that. But that's probably the other burden I think that I could think of was that it seems like the burden on the caregivers having, I don't know, because I go to my weekly infusions by myself because I can drive myself there and back, and that works. But I see, a lot of other people who have people with them, and I just think, wow, like the time that those caregivers are taking out from their own lives, whatever that could entail, other family responsibilities or work responsibilities, and And I thought that seems like something that would be a burden for the caregivers. So my biggest supporter and champion have been my children. They have just been full of love, and you know, they know when I need to rest, and usually it's at 2 days after infusion, to just let me rest, and they have entertained themselves with various activities that are just right there at home. But they've been my biggest supporters and champions at home, and they're my reason why I'm fighting and will continue fighting, and my reason for getting up each morning and going to work and just kind of pushing through this health challenge, this trial. Yeah. My students also gave me a lot of, they were also champions for me. And, going to work and being with them. And, several would come over and ask, just, how are you doing today, Miss Locke? Or, they'd come and give me a hug or let me know that they were rooting for me and that they and their families were praying for me. And they did a really awesome service project in which they made Valentine's cards that that I was able to take to Huntsman when I went for my infusion and leave for the patients that were going through chemotherapy that week. And they were an awesome support for me. Because it's a culture-based school, they take cultural performing arts classes where they learn chants and songs and dances from the Pacific Island cultures. And one of their songs is a song of thanks. And towards the end of the school year, as they were preparing for their recital in one of their rehearsals, our cultural performing arts teacher, Fina, talked to them and asked them to, as they were singing and performing that particular song, to dedicate it to me, and as I was in the room, and for them to think of, the heart that went into the meaning behind the song. So that was really meaningful when they dedicated that song and sang it to me. I felt, the love and the strength and support and power of the students and their love for me. Yeah. So the best advice that was given to me was not to turn down offers of help. That if you didn't know specifically in the moment when someone asked if they could help you, what you needed help with, to just say, I'll get back to you. Yes, I would love the help, but I'll get back to you on what specifically or when, because there are a lot of offers of help. There's a lot of, I can't even count how many times I heard, the question, how can I help? Or can I help you? And so, so that advice to not turn down help is, I think, really good advice. As far as other advice, I also think that it's important to be informed about your diagnosis and treatment plan, but not to get overwhelmed by the amount of information that is available. Kind of at a few different points, I kind of had to just realize that I had the information that I needed, so that I could not get consumed and, okay, I'm going to keep getting more and more information. So just not to get overwhelmed by the amount of information, to kind of know when you have enough and work with that. Definitely my involvement with Susan G. Komen is something that I'm very thankful for. My first involvement was when I decided to sign up for a 3-day walk in San Diego. And I decided to sign up the year that my mother passed away in 2004. And I'm so glad that I did, because I think it helped me through the grief process to do that walk, and then to be with so many other men and women who had some connection to breast cancer. That is actually, for me, meeting survivors through that walk was very important. It helped me see the hope of that there are many survivors, people who have been diagnosed with breast cancer, gone through treatment, and are living a healthy life after having that diagnosis. So that was kind of my first involvement, and then I continued to participate in a few other 3-day walks, but also Race for the Cure.